Hi, and welcome. I'm Dr. Kathy. And whether I was doing surgery in Guatemala, caring for infants, or teaching neonatal exams in Tanzania, caring for burn victims in Niger, teaching healthcare science in Korea, or traveling to Shanghai to learn Chinese medicine, I noticed the same thing worldwide. Patients needed better, healthier food choices. So how was I going to take all of my skills and talents as a doctor and former chef, turn them into one career? That's when I had an idea. I was going to swap one white coat for another. Welcome to The Doctor is In, Cooking with Kathy. Hi, and welcome to The Doctor is In, Cooking with Kathy. I'm Dr. Kathy the Chef. In today's episode, I'm going to be making one of my favorite holiday entrees, and it is a prime rib roast. Now that might sound intimidating and expensive, and it's neither actually. I got this particular prime rib roast, and it's boneless, at one of the local warehouse stores for relatively inexpensive. And is it difficult? No, not with these tips I'm going to give you. And it's going to be beautifully tasty every single time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our meat, and we're going to prep that. And I'm going to take a thin, long knife, and I'm going to poke some holes into the top, and into that I am going to place thin slices of garlic. I'm just using my finger to go down in here and place them in there. And I'm going to do that in a scattered pattern throughout the entire top of this roast. I'll show you what that looks like after the edit. Okay, so I have stuffed those little pieces of garlic, very thinly sliced, into the meat. Now your question probably is, isn't that a lot of garlic, and isn't that flavor going to be very intense? And the answer to both of those questions is no. It's not too much garlic, and the flavor won't be intense. As a matter of fact, that garlic is basically going to melt into the meat and give it just this beautiful creamy garlic flavor that permeates the meat but doesn't make it too intense. Obviously, if you aren't a gigantic fan of garlic, maybe make a few less holes than I did. But still, this is great. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to place a little bit of olive oil on the top of this and rub it in really quickly. So I'm just going to spray a little bit of olive oil. You don't want too much, just enough so that all of your spices and herbs are going to stick on here. I'm going to do it on both sides. There we go. Okay. And then I have a mixture here of some freshly ground rosemary and a little bit of Italian spices. I'm going to mix those together and just sprinkle this on the meat, and then give it a real quick rub on all the sides, on top and on the bottom. There we go. Okay, all over. And the last thing we want to do is to put some salt and pepper on. So I've got some salt and some freshly ground pepper. Mix that up. And I'm mainly going to put this on the top part of this roast that has some of the fat. Okay, let's give this a nice even sprinkle over the top. Pat that in. Place some on the sides and on the bottom. Pat that in, and then on the sides. Okay, anything you've got left over, sprinkle it evenly over the top, and it's going to go into the holes with the garlic, and it's going to help permeate the inside of the meat so you get all the flavor running throughout. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this in some plastic wrap or some film wrap and let this sit in the refrigerator overnight to allow the meat to sort of cure a little bit and for all those flavors to penetrate. And then we will put it into our oven, and I'll show you how to do that through the magic of editing. Hi, welcome back. So your roast has been sitting overnight in the refrigerator, and now it is ready to go into an oven, except bring it to room temperature. So let it sit out on a counter covered for about an hour until it's pretty much room temperature. And then place it in a pan. I have just a disposable pan here, and inside this pan I have onions and some garlic and some sprigs of rosemary. And that's just going to be a place for my roast to sit. If you have a roasting pan that has a rack in it, that's great too. I like this because it's going to add these flavors to our juice that we're going to get from here and then make that into a gravy. And so I'm going to put this right on top of all of my vegetables that I have here. Give my counter a real quick wipe down. Okay, raw meat, I won't use this again, so I'm going to put that to the side. Okay, and then I'm also going to place it on a sheet pan. Okay, so here we go. Now this is not quite ready to go into the oven. The next thing I want to do is I want to take some of that rosemary and just place it right on the top here as well. So a couple of whole sprigs. And then I've also got my secret ingredient, a little bit of lavender, and I'm just going to sprinkle this lightly over the roast and in the bottom. And that is going to add this really herbal sort of a flavor to this meat, but it's not going to have that perfumey sort of a taste or scent that you get from lavender, because we're not using a lot. And this is cooking grade lavender as well. And then I'm also going to put into the bottom of the pan, just sort of around the sides, some crushed, dried horseradish. Okay, and then maybe sprinkle just a touch of this over the top. Okay, I like the little bit of heat that that gives. And that's going to add flavor to our broth. That's going to come out, our drippings that are going to come out of our roast and be saved into this pan. Now, how long do you cook this for? Well, that's a tricky sort of a question. It really depends on how you want your meat cooked at the end. Rare, medium rare, well done. I like mine rare to medium rare. So I want my internal temperature to be about 120 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to take it out of the oven when it's about 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Let this sit for 20 minutes slightly covered. You can tent it with aluminum foil. I'm going to take another pan like this and just sort of place it on the top, giving it a little bit of venting space, and then let that sit for 20 minutes. And it continues cooking, and my internal temperature will be medium rare, the way that my family likes it. The edges are going to be a little bit more rare than the center, so that's good. And then if somebody likes it a little bit more well done, then you can always just give these little sections a quick heat. Average is to cook it about 20 minutes per pound, give or take. Again, this depends on the temperature of your oven. This depends on how fast your oven cooks. So what I recommend is a meat thermometer where you can stick it in and get the desired temperature. Now we want to start our roast in a preheated 450 degree Fahrenheit oven and cook that for the first 20 minutes, and then turn it down to 350 and cook it the rest of the way. And then with editing, because I'm going to put this into the oven, I'm going to show you what that looks like, and then we'll come right back and I'm going to show you what we're going to serve as our sides for what I would serve in a nice holiday meal. So I'm putting this into the oven. Okay, our roast is in the oven, just put it in there, and now we're going to get started on our potatoes. And these are double baked potatoes. This is one of my family's favorite recipes. I am going to be perfectly honest with you. For holidays, my potatoes are not healthy. I make it with butter and cream and a little sour cream. It is the holidays after all. you're allowed to treat yourself every once in a while. And again, as I've always said, it's not about restricting what you put into your mouth. It's about being more conscious about quantities. And one of the things I've learned is that if you tell somebody you can't have another potato, what's the first thing they're going to want? Of course, a potato. You don't eat any more potato chips. When they have that little craving or they feel as though they have disappointed their physician, what's the first thing they reach for? That thing that the physician told them that they can't have. So, I want to show you that it's okay to eat some of these things. You just have to be a little bit more conscientious about size. So, I've got here a medium-sized red potato. Normally, like I said, for holidays, I use these gigantic russet and Idaho potatoes. And my family gobbles them down like they're little bitty tiny ones. And of course, they feel it the next day. So today, I'm going to use a medium-sized red potato. You can use a small red potato. They're actually kind of cute, double stuffed as a small potato, but this I'm going to use a medium one. It's important to poke holes into your potato in order to ensure that it doesn't explode with the buildup of pressure in your oven. Now my roast just went in at 450 degrees and it's going to be in there for 20 minutes. And that's how I'm going to start this potato, for 20 minutes at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we're going to, when we turn down the oven, we're going to check to see the doneness of our potato. So come on back and I'll show you how to finish up our double stuffed or double baked potatoes. Our roast and our potatoes are in the oven. So what's the next thing that we're going to do? Probably one of the easiest parts of this menu. This whole menu is pretty easy. This is probably the easiest. These are frozen green beans. Yes, I said frozen green beans. There's nothing wrong with frozen vegetables, as long as you get frozen vegetables that don't have salt in them. So check the package to make sure that they didn't use salt as a preservative. But these are frozen. They're still a little bit frozen. I kind of like to eat frozen vegetables. It's an interesting taste. All the work has been done for you. You just let that sit until it thaws out. And then we'll finish that off right before cooking. It couldn't be easier than that. So, a couple of things I want to talk a little bit about. I'm American, and I get jided a lot of times by my European friends about the fact that I use Fahrenheit and ounces and pounds and things like that. Yeah, in the United States, that's the standard of measure that we use. I will try in the future to be a little bit more conscientious about a global audience and have my ingredients scaled into grams and kilograms, and also to have Celsius for a temperature cooking as well. Today's episode won't have that, but I will try for future ones. Note taken and appreciated. Okay, so we're going to wait for our potato to be done. I'm going to check that once it's been in the oven at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for about approximately 20 minutes. And when I turn down my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll come on back after editing and you'll see what that looks like. Okay, welcome back. Our potato is out of the oven and I've let it, still a little warm, and I've let it cool off just a little bit. And now I'm going to take a knife and I'm going to cut the top. Now I happen to nick this as I put it into the oven, so that's perfect because I'm just going to cut a nice little oval hole into the top. And place that into, actually I've got a potato ricer right here. I'm going to place that right in here. Okay. And then I'm going to scoop out the rest of the potato with a fork, just kind of going around the outside, trying not to pierce the skin because we're going to use this. That's why it's called a double baked or a double stuffed potato. And then just scoop out the meat. and put it into your potato ricer or whatever you're going to use to mash your potatoes, or just place it directly into your bowl. And once I get this all scooped out, I'm going to show you what to do. Okay, as you can see, I am in the process of mashing the potatoes. Okay, here we go. All my potatoes are nice and mashed. You can see all that. And here is my potato shell, emptied out. I'm just going to hang on to this, put this to the side. Now I'm going to add my seasonings. I have here a little bit of garlic salt. And yes, I said salt because this is the only salt that's going to go into this. And then I'm going to do some crushed black pepper. Okay. And I'm going to do a little bit of yogurt to give it some creaminess. Normally I would do this with butter and heavy cream, but we're making this one a little healthier. Okay, and then I'm going to taste this for seasoning. Look at how nice and creamy that is. Okay, this nice little taste. Oh, perfect. It doesn't need any more salt because that garlic salt adds just enough to it, and that yogurt brings this really nice little tang. Now I'm going to put this into a pastry bag. If I was going to do a lot of potatoes, this would be really great to do. I'm just doing one here, but it still works out nicely. Put this to the side. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to squeeze all those delicious potatoes nicely back into my shell. There we go. Then just give it a nice little bit on the top, kind of give it a little bit of a decoration or a design. You could do this with a big piping tip. That's really nice to do. Here we go. Very good. Very nice. Okay. And now this can sit to the side until just before you're going to serve about when you take out your roast, you can put these back in and we're going to let them brown on the top. So come on back and we'll put this all together and we'll finish our green beans that have been frozen and just sitting, waiting to be used. If I don't eat them all first. Hi, welcome back. So I've taken my meat out of the oven. This is pretty hot. And as you can see, it's nice and brown. And the bits of rosemary on the top are a little bit charred, which is how I wanted them, but I'm going to take them off and discard them. And I'm going to save all the juices that have gathered in here, and I'm going to use that to make a gravy. Now I'm going to cover this. I used my meat thermometer. I took this out when, for me, it was 115 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to come up to about 125, and that's going to be medium rare. And now I'm just going to temp this for about 20 minutes. And my potato is now in the oven, getting ready to crisp and brown on the top, so it's going to be really nice. Now I'm just, instead of putting it directly like this so that it's completely covering, I'm tilting it a little bit so it's got a little bit of ventilation. And I'm going to leave this sit for 20 minutes. And when we come back, everything will get put together, including our green beans, which are almost completely thawed now. Come back. Hi, welcome back. So we've got it all here, and now we're going to assemble it. Before we do that, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. I'm going to talk about those green beans. So what did I do with them? After I let them come to room temperature, I put them into a preheated skillet that was dry. No butter, no oil, nothing like that. And I just lightly sauteed them, and no salt and pepper or anything. I just gave them a little bit of a hint of a hot sauce and tossed that up in there, and they have this really bright flavor without any salt. It's fantastic. Give this a little bit of a try. So that's the green beans. Our potatoes out of the oven, and I've already cut some of our meat. And as you can see here, this is how my family likes it. This is medium rare, more like it. But this is one of the pieces at the end. This is a little bit more towards the medium side. So this is what I'm going to serve my husband. Now I don't know if you can see this here, but here are those pieces of garlic, and they basically just melted in, and it's just such an absolutely beautiful flavor that it's going to give to our meat. And then here again is our potato. It's got a nice little crispy crust on the side. My husband likes horseradish, so here's a little horseradish mixture. Here is the pan drippings that I added to a beef demi, and if you've seen the chicken stock recipe, it's basically the same thing. I made a beef stock and turned it into a demi. I'll show you how to do that in another episode, but I've got that here, and I'm going to give it a real quick taste. And my spoon is in some heated water with a little bit of sanitation fluid in it, just to make sure that I can continue to use it, because you don't want to put this in your mouth and then put it back in. And I'm just going to give it a taste to see if it needs any extra seasonings. Nope, that's good. As a matter of fact, you get that light hit of rosemary, and I know what the flavor is. It's the lavender, and it comes through ever so slightly. Basically what it does is it just brightens up that rosemary. So that doesn't need anything else. And it's very thin. As you can see, this is thin. This is a jus. This is not a gravy. If you want to thicken it up, you can. I like it like this. Okay, so now, before we plate this up, I want to talk a little bit about plates. Now, I used to serve my husband on plates like this, pretty large plates. I've now started serving him on a smaller plate. This would kind of be considered a salad plate. And at first he was a little resistant to that because he wanted that big plate of food. But the more he got used to smaller portions, the more this became his favorite plate because he really could control his portions. So normally you'll see me serve on a plate like this size. And this is more of a salad side plate. I don't use it for salads anymore. I'll use this one for a really nice salad. And this one I use as my dinner plate. However, today, because this is a big piece of meat, I am going to use the bigger plate. So let me put this one out of the way. And let's get our serving size here. Start with our beautiful meat. Oh, that is so lovely. I'm going to give him 2 pieces because it is more of a holiday meal. I'll let him use today as his day to consume extra calories. I don't like to call it a cheat day because that implies that you're doing something wrong, and you're not doing something wrong if you eat sensibly. So let's take that word cheat right out of there. I'm going to put his potato on and give him some of these beautiful green beans. Okay, very good. And I'm also going to serve it with this horseradish. I'm going to serve the horseradish on the side, and he can cut and dip as he wants. There we go. Very nice. And that's going to be his. I'm going to taste this in a second. Oh, and I'm going to give him a little bit of gravy as well. Just pour a little bit of this jus on the top of the potato. There we go. And just over the meat to give it a little bit of extra flavor. But this meat should be very, very flavorful. We let that marinate and sit for a little while. So this is just gilding the lily a little bit. Okay, put all this to the side. Oh, and as you can see, I have very little juice coming off of my meat. And that's because I waited 20 minutes and let this sit. So let's give this a little taste. I'm kind of curious to see how everything turned out. I'm just going to take a little bit off the side over here. Wow. That rosemary and garlic flavor is so delicious on there. This was so easy to cook. It's going to be a hit at your next holiday party or a great dinner party, inviting over your special friends. That's going to be fantastic. Now I want to show you one other thing. Put some of this stuff to the side. This is a piece of that garlic that we cooked, and I'm just going to squeeze it out of the shell, and it's very soft. And I'm going to take a cracker, and I'm just going to squeeze it on the cracker. Mash this up and put this on your next entertainment tray. You can even serve that with your appetizers, little pieces of bread that people can just dip into this garlic. It needs nothing. Doesn't need salt, doesn't need pepper, doesn't need any oil. It got all the flavors from being cooked into this beef. So here we go. This is a prime rib roast holiday meal with a double stuffed potato and lightly seasoned green beans. This is pretty healthy. Sure, this is a big portion, but my husband is a pretty tall guy. And it's easy enough to make for a holiday, for a special occasion, and it's pretty healthy, and it's so delicious. It's almost a foolproof recipe. As long as you get the internal cooking temperature of this right, you'll have no problems at all. And even if you do overcook it just a little bit, it'll still be absolutely delicious. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. The Doctor is in Cooking with Kathy. I'm Dr. Kathy, the chef, and I hope that you will subscribe to my channel and keep an eye out for my Sunday full meals and then my Wednesday extras. Hopefully I'll be adding a little bit more content in the near future. And the way I can do that is if you suggest some recipes that I can healthify for you. I would love to be able to do that. If you have any feedback or questions, put those into the comments and I will try and answer them the best I possibly can. And if you have any other questions, you can always pop me a message. I would appreciate that as well. And if you have a recipe, give that to me. Maybe the next episode will be a recipe that you have given to me. So again, thank you very much for joining The Doctor is in Cooking with Kathy. I'm Dr. Kathy the chef. Until next time, abbondanza e ciao.